Morning, it's February 23rd, and this is To My Liberal Friends. When Joe Biden became the President of the United States, he said he wanted to give his Vice President, Kamala Harris, a more substantive role than previous Vice Presidents. On that note, he put the Vice President in charge of the southern border, and by default, the major immigration problem along that border. So how many of you think the Vice President has handled this task with any level of expertise? She's failed to visit the border, and she's been in office for almost 25 months. She has not proposed any plan to solve the crisis, even though she repeatedly says it's not a crisis, and has told everyone that the southern border is secure. Her go-to comments have been that the immigration system was broken by the Trump administration and needs to be fixed. To be exact, this is her comment, quote, "The border is secure, but we also have a broken immigration system, in particular over the last 4 years before we came in, and it needs to be fixed," end quote. Well, now that Republicans have retaken the majority in the House of Representatives, they have the ability to hold hearings on the subject, something Democrats avoided for the past 2 years, and to compel witnesses to attend those hearings. Earlier this month, the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability held a hearing titled, quote, "On the Front Lines of the Border Crisis, a Hearing with Chief Patrol Agents," end quote. Chairman Comer and the committee Republicans outlined how President Biden and his administration's policies created the worst border crisis in American history. U.S. Border Patrol chiefs testified, and I might add they've been blocked prior to this by Secretary Mayorkas. They testified about a crisis that has set records for the arrest of illegal border crossers, migrant deaths, narcotics seized, and suspected terrorists arrested trying to illegally cross the border. In the last Congress, as I said, Democrats did not hold a single hearing on the humanitarian national security crisis at the border. The hearing the Republicans held was the first time the committee heard from the U.S. Border Patrol agents during the Biden administration about their ongoing efforts to secure the border. Right now, the average is about 200,000 crossings per month, the highest in the history of the country. To fully understand why these numbers exploded, you have to go back to the campaign in 2020. This was the position of the Biden campaign at that time. Joe Biden's campaign website said that he will adopt some of the following immigration enforcement policies in his first 100 days in office. And I'm going to quote, "Immediately reverse the Trump administration's cruel and senseless policies that separate parents from their children at our border. End Trump's detrimental asylum policies. End the mismanagement of the asylum system, which fuels violence and chaos at the border. Surge humanitarian resources to the border and foster public-private initiatives. End prolonged detention and reinvest in a case management program. Reverse Trump's public charge rule. End the so-called national emergency that siphons federal dollars from the Department of Defense to build a wall. Protect Dreamers and their families. Order an immediate review of the temporary protected status for vulnerable populations who cannot find safety in their countries ripped apart by violence or disaster," end quote. That's a real mouthful. The result is that people in the Northern Triangle and the rest of the world view that as an open invitation to come to the United States. They're coached by immigration advocates on how to apply for asylum. But any reasonable person quickly realizes this is nothing more than a charade. If you're fleeing Nicaragua for political reasons, then you're safe in Mexico, where you already speak the language. If you're fleeing Venezuela, then Panama is a safe haven. But we know they're coming to the United States because they've been told they can get better jobs here, which means they're economic migrants. Now, I understand that, but that does not fit the definition of asylum that's currently in place. The Biden administration has been under heavy criticism, and so this week they put forward some new rules. The Departments of Homeland Security and Justice on Tuesday announced a proposed rule that will bar some migrants from applying for asylum in the U.S. if they cross the border illegally or fail to first apply for safe harbor in another country. This was the rule was previewed by Joe Biden in January. Following a 30-day public comment period, it will be implemented upon May 11th, end of the COVID public health emergency, according to a senior administration official who briefed reporters. This is basically adopting a rule that Trump administration put in place and was roundly criticized by Democrats and Biden. And Democrats are going to criticize this rule now as well. It will be called racist by those who oppose it. But someone in the Biden administration has finally woken up and realized the southern border has become a political issue as much as anything else. And as they gear up for a re-election campaign, they have to show they're trying to do something. But those that criticize this rule have no solution of their own. They want an open border for their own personal and political reasons. They give no consideration to the real cost of illegal immigration. Those costs are burying localities along the border. And with the transfer of these illegal migrants to northern cities, they're starting to feel the brunt of these costs. The mayors in these cities are complaining and asking for federal dollars. And I've not mentioned the cost to the school districts that have to move funds normally geared to a myriad of school programs to fund the ESL programs for the influx of migrant children. Nobody seems to look at the cost to local hospitals that are being buried financially with the cost of caring for migrants with health issues. All of these issues are ones that are related to this massive influx of illegal immigration that was initially welcomed by Biden to appease the left, but now his team seems to realize it's become a political liability. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, recommend it to friends and hit the subscribe button.